Welcome to Reclaiming America. I'm Greta, and I'm here with the stars of the show. Bill Moore, say hello to the folks.
Hello to the folks.
Dan, say hello to everybody.
Hello to everybody.
So welcome back to a fun episode of Reclaiming America. Guys, let's roll the show.
Let's make it happen.
All right.
Do it.
Bill, what do you got?
Oh, I think we should start out. There's a couple of things that just stick out. Have you heard about the war in Israel?
No. Is there a war?
Nobody else has either, because evidently they've stopped it for 5 days.
No, they restarted it this morning.
Yeah, I know. They're firing things back in, and these poor guys are shooting at them from our country, telling them they can't do this anymore. You've got to guarantee when you go into the southern part of the country, you're not going to hurt anybody. You got to guarantee all the people get out of there. You got to guarantee, the best thing that might happen to the Israelis is if they break ties with the United States at this particular point.
You think that's a possibility?
No, because unfortunately they have the technology and the repair parts.
Yeah, I couldn't see that happening. But, it's interesting to see, they were paused for roughly a week, give or take. There were still incidences going on. Of course, you're not hearing about them in the news, but they were all over TikTok and Instagram. People were posting videos of things going on. So, of course, according to the news media, nothing happened. And I think what's happening that I'm seeing is that people aren't really doing any research. They're going by what they see that's in their little bubble and going off of that, as opposed to what's actually happening. The big example being, it was about a month ago, the hospital thing, right? Everybody assumed it was the Israelis shot a missile into a hospital. Long story short, it wasn't. But it's what I think is a good point to make, though, is we're starting to see where non-regular media is starting to lose its grip, because I'm seeing more and more on the social medias where people are actually talking and showing videos.
That's true. And maybe the truth will get out that way for a change.
I think
I think the Biden administration, Blinken, who's out there telling them that they've got to make sure they don't hurt anybody in the South. And, all I keep going back to, if this was 911, like we had, would we be listening to anybody that put the gloves on, make sure it doesn't happen? No, we'd be telling them where to go and how to get there. These people deserve the same rights.
Do you think that we're going to do anything to stop the Israelis? I think it's a lot of blustering going on that, we're got to make sure we take care of the civilians. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's more posturing for their base than it is what they actually want to do. What do you think?
No, I don't think so. I think they're putting heavy pressure on to make it stop.
Interesting. What do you think, Greta?
I have a different opinion. I think the Israelis don't think of Joe Biden as much of an impressive or threat in either way. I don't think they're worried about our government not providing them things, because the support for Israel is going to stay higher than it is for Hamas. So I just don't see it. I think Joe Biden agrees with the last person he spoke to generally. So I don't take anything out of it.
I don't think he knows what day of the week it is, let alone what anybody's saying. I agree with you, actually, Greta. I think, and the Israelis have always kind of gone their own way anyway. I don't think they give two craps what we say or do, other than the fact they don't want to go too far because we are their support, right?
More importantly than just our support and their money, they can't work that equipment that we give them without repair parts. And if you don't understand how critical repair parts are in a war, they can grind to a halt in a matter of days.
Hours, potentially, on some of them.
And we're not even talking about the ammunition to load in it.
Right. Where do you see this going? They've restarted as of today. My opinion is, in having heard a couple of things that I saw on social media from Netanyahu, that basically they're going to go river to sea. They're going to do their own version of it. He didn't quite say it that way, but he was pretty much implying it.
He kind of said sea to river.
Yeah, well, the exact opposite of what they're saying. But I have a feeling, and seeing what Israel's done in the past, you think back to 72 when the hostages got taken in Germany, and they took them all out. In other areas, they don't just take you out; they take your family out too. I don't think they're going to be any different this time. I don't care how much pressure is put on them. What do you think?
Well, I think the culture is there to begin with. The culture of that area is if you're going to make somebody an enemy, you're going to take them out. You're going to take the family out, so no one's coming back to get revenge in 5, 10, or 15 years when they get older.
True. What do you think, Greta?
I think Netanyahu's sitting on a tough choice. I think in this kind of a conflict, he's got a 50-50 decision to make, right? So on the one hand, I think a lot of times that time is not on his side at all, that he's got to be decisive and rely on shock and all and everything else to kind of just shut these guys down for a while and catch his breath. And I think he did that. And I also think he knows that he has to keep some kind of a goodwill and that this could go on for much longer than he would like. And he would need those repair parts and all that kind of help. But I still think Bibi is going to go. He's going to do the same thing he did in the northern part of Gaza. He's going to say, if you're a civilian and you don't want to get hurt, you need to get out now, which he just did, right? And then I think he's going to go, all hell's going to break loose. And then probably there will be another pause. But I also think Israeli intelligence is hard to beat. So
that's true. Mossad has got some group of information there.
They're as good as it gets as far as gathering intel.
Truly.
My only concern with that theory is the pressure they're going to get from the United States. And that's the big issue. They're already talking again. They're bringing up the two-state solution that President, I don't know where I am, is saying on many again. Two-state solution. There's no two-state solution for this operation. The only way Israel can survive is to take out Hamas completely. Otherwise, there's going to be a deja vu again in another 5 or 10 years, whatever it's going to be. They're just going to rebuild. They're going to do it again. And actually, what I really think is something a little bit off the wall to that. I really think this is only going to stop when the United States and other countries stop Iran.
You think it's
as long as Iran's got the money to feed them and give them the ammunition and whatever, the training, whatever else, this is just going to keep going on forever. So they need to go in and shut Iran down and either economically boycott them or whatever else, or go in there and just clean them out, because it's not going to stop while they fund the terrorism, which we're giving them money to do.
Yeah, we talked about that a few weeks back, right? As Iran is backing this monetarily in every way they possibly can. And I agree with you, Bill. Until something is done about Iran, this is going to go on forever. Back when this all started in early October, there was talk that a large reason why it was done then was because Saudi Arabia was getting ready to recognize Israel as a nation and end all their hostilities with it. And other countries, I forget which ones, were saying the same thing. Yemen and Iran were the two that were like, no. And that's what the belief is. If it's true, it's speculation, was that's why they pushed Hezbollah and Hamas to do what they're doing, because they want to disrupt that from happening. I think once this settles down, I think you're going to see Saudi Arabia recognize Israel pretty quick. What do you think?
I agree with you on that, but I also think that what's interesting is Saudis have just outreached to Iran and offering them economic relief to develop their country. And there could be a lot of reasons for that. Some of them good, not so good.
Well, some of that I think is they got to play nice, right? Iran has the ability to affect the oil supplies in the Gulf, right? So Saudis are dependent on that. Now, we have carriers and all that there, but at some point, Saudi Arabia's got to look after itself. I'm be interested to see, because I think, depending on what happens in the election next year, I mean, Trump's making noises that he's going to pull us back from a lot of things. If he wins, I don't think we're going to be supporting Saudi or some of the other countries as much as we are now. And maybe they're looking at that, reading the tea leaves a little bit and making those gestures towards, say, in Iran. Because the Saudis don't want a war. I don't know how they would even do against Iran on their own. What is your input on that?
Greta, you agree? What do you think on that one? Because I'm going to jump in after you on this one.
I kind of I wanted to go a slightly different direction. So you go first, Bill.
All right. I think the Saudis have all the equipment they need to do the battleground. They have the best equipment. They buy it from us, and it's almost a privilege over there to be one of the jet fighters. So they want to go out and do something. They can handle themselves very nicely. Plus, the Saudis have enough money to hire an army if they need it, and bring the mercenaries in wherever they need it, because they do that over the country now. Nobody works; they hire people to do that. So, and everybody gets paid a nice sum from the Saudis. So they're capable of defending themselves. They're also capable of being smart enough to realize that if you can't trust the United States, then there has to be a regional solution to this thing, and they need to be the big player in that.
I think there's so many elements of disruption going on in this picture. We always, and of course we do, we see it on the news all the time. We focus on Israel, Hamas, Israel, Gaza, right? But the other thing is that the Saudis, the Emirates, Qatar, there's lots of people out there who have made a fortune, who want trade back open. That's how they make an even bigger fortune. And disruptions like this in the Middle East do not serve that end. And geez, how many disruptions had those guys had in the last 25 years? I mean, nothing but disruption. So right now you hear about Europe, saying, okay, enough with the Middle East immigration. You guys are out of here, all this other stuff. But what you don't hear is that Thailand is also doing that. New Zealand is doing that. I mean, you got to open your mind to the world and say, at some point, there's going to be more than just the Palestinian people looking for a home. And the rest of the countries in the Middle East are going to, not here, because even Pakistan is deporting people. Where are they going to go?
And Egypt's got their border pretty well secured. They don't want them in there either.
They don't need any more of this. Okay. They already had their tourism butchered at that last uprising. They are just getting back on their feet.
And look what the Palestinians almost did in Jordan.
Yes.
Yeah, they're just not going to let them back in there because they're not going to have a chance it's going to happen.
And that's a point that I think a lot of the kids and those protesting over here miss out on, right? Is they're so focused on Gaza, they don't realize that the Palestinians have been kicked out of multiple countries at this point. Everywhere they go, they stir up trouble. Egypt's disowned them, Syria disowned them, Jordan disowned them. That talk about a two-state solution, it was already tried, basically, right? Maybe not fully implemented, but they gave the Palestinians part of Jordan and Syria, and what did they do? Hey, let's overthrow the king and the government.
It wasn't about 18 years ago that the Israelis forcibly moved their own people off that property so they could turn it over to them and give them the beginning of their state. So they've created this state against the best wishes of their own people to try to get a long-term solution. But there's no long-term solution to people who tell you that their only solution is you to die.
And that's a key point you just made, Bill, is they already have had their own state. They were given Gaza. Israel walked out in 2004, 5, 6, whatever it was, left them everything. They could have had a beautiful country. They could have had tourism. They could have had it all. They had the infrastructure. They didn't have to worry about getting water from anything. It was already there, created. And what did they do? They voted in Hamas, and Hamas tore it to shreds. And so, all right, we're going to give them land somewhere else. One, where are you going to get that land from? And two, why would you think it would be any different this time when they've shown repeatedly what they're going to do? I just, for the life of me, can't understand why the Palestinians do what they do. Is it really that much blind hatred of the Jews? I don't know, because that's what those that are protesting are saying. It's hatred both ways. But then what about the other Arab countries that don't want them? They always seem to forget that little part.
Nobody wants them.
Nobody wants them. You're exactly right.
This almost goes back to the old Hatfields and McCoys. We grew up for centuries, years hating the other side. Don't know why, but we have to hate them, and we cannot possibly work with them. Don't know why. Don't know if they're good or bad people, but they have to be bad people because my great great grandfather had a fight with somebody,
and they've been doing it for 1,000 years.
Yep.
Okay,
thousands of years. Yeah,
This is nothing new.
Well, I heard a good one. You might like this one. So they were talking about how Israel came about in 1947 and the Jews were given all this land. And somebody said, well, it's kind of funny that there was a carpenter back about 2,000 years ago that was born in a town called Bethlehem, named after a Jewish name, and they were there then. So they're rewriting history, which they tend to like to do. But this conflict's been going on for literally millennia at this point. What do you think happens over the next few weeks and months? I think it's going to escalate. You know what? The thing that bothered me the most with this pause was I understand why it didn't happen, but they didn't get anybody out. There was no exodus of civilians, which was a large reason to have the pause. Hamas wasn't letting them out. We know that. What do you see happening over the next, let's say, 4 to 8 weeks?
From my viewpoint, they're going to go at it strong. Israel's going to come out with everything they got. But as I said before, nothing's going to change until someone decides they're going to take Iran out of this formula, because that's when you're going to see change. When you cut them, there's an old line: follow the money.
Yeah, if they don't have the funding, they're not going to be able to do anything. What do you think, Greta?
That's the head of the snake. Iran is clearly, I mean, they're lobbing rounds into what? Iraq, Israel, all kinds of other folks are lobbing rounds out to sea, ICBMs. It doesn't get any worse. Honestly, it really doesn't.
And they're providing support for Hezbollah, and those the Yemen terrorists over there too. So cut off the money. What are you going to fight with? Your knife or a stick?
Right.
Yeah. And on that point, let's take a break. So we'll take it away, run some commercials, and we'll be back in a couple minutes on Reclaiming America.
Welcome back to Reclaiming America as we go into the second segment of our show. We've had a pretty lively run with Israel right now. Dan and Greta and I are going to now talk about something a little bit fun last night. Sean Hannity had a debate between Governor Newsom and Governor Desantis. And if you watched it, I think you have to say that Desantis won on substance and Newsom won on sheer stupidity. Either that or I'd give him, if this was not a family show, the balls to say what he did.
Well, first of all, I have not seen the whole thing. I did watch highlights of it. And I'll be honest with you, I think both of them got their shots in for their base, right? If you're a woke lefter, you got to be honest and say that, Newsom got some shots in on DeSantis and vice versa. To me, it was a whole bunch of nothing, if I can be honest with you. First of all, why is DeSantis debating somebody that's not even running? What's the benefit to him in any way, shape, or form if he's running for president to debate somebody that's not running? Now, I'm setting aside the part that we all know Newsom's the candidate in about 6 months, but what are your thoughts on that?
I think first of all, it's exposure. People are listening to him. He gets a chance to put out his accomplishments in Florida. And he has done an awful lot in Florida and trying to reinvigorate his campaign. So I think there's more pluses to that than dealing with Newsom. I just think that they let Newsom get up there and lie through his teeth. We have plenty of people. They're not leaving California. They're all coming there illegally, maybe, but that's about it. That's all that's coming in there. And we don't have all those problems on the streets. And, our taxes are not that high, et cetera, et cetera. And he just either believes this thing or he thinks the rest of us are absolute idiots.
Oh, I think it's a case of he thinks people are idiots. They think their base is too stupid to know the truth. I really believe that. That they figure if we just tell them this is how it is, they're going to believe it. And let's be honest, they are believing it. Right. I mean, hook, line, and sinker, they're believing it. They don't. And what's hilarious to me is you point out to them and you show them videos or pictures or whatever, and they still can't believe it. It's sad actually to realize that a good portion of
DeSantis pulled up a poop map.
Yeah, I mean, to see DeSantis sit there and say, "Well, California's growing," when everybody, other than the far left, knows everybody's exodusing from California. I think you mean
Newsom.
What's that?
I think you mean Newsom.
Did I say DeSantis? I'm sorry. I meant Newsom. Yeah. Whereas Florida, on the other hand, that's where they're all moving to.
But I thought the best line of the night was when he got up to when DeSantis said, I was talking to a person that moved here from California because of taxes, because of the crime rate over there, because of everything going on there that's negative. And he says, and by the way, that was your father-in-law.
Yeah, that was beautiful. I love.
I just couldn't cry. I cracked up on that. That was a great line.
There was a few of them that I literally laughed out loud. Some of which was what, like you were referring to, Newsom just saying things that were so absurd. Anyone with any intelligence was just laughing at it. What do you think this does, though, with the understanding that at least my belief is Newsom is going to be the candidate for president for the Democratic Party? I think this is all setting up to do that. What do you think this does does it help him, hurt him? Nothing. I don't know.
Well, as soon as he said during the debate, well, neither one of us are going to be the candidates, you knew he was running.
That was kind of what I thought too. Exactly. This is like the worst kept secret going. What do you think, Greta?
I think it was shtick. I think it was ratings. I think it's brilliant that Hannity landed the gig and, kind of egged it on over time. And these two egged each other on over time. But my closest approximation to something not so professional as these two politicians, these governors, would be the Jerry Springer show. Where clearly this was about who can land the most punches and zingers and what have you. And I will grant you that Ron DeSantis had as always, had his facts, had everything else. Newsom had nothing but snark and lies and everything else. But I think it was a show. I really do.
I agree with you, and I think let's talk about maybe who won. And I'm gonna try and be as neutral as I can with it. I think when it came to facts, DeSantis blew him away. It wasn't even close. It's like 95-5 if you put a percentage on it. As far as charisma, though, if I'm being honest, I think Newsom showed more charisma. DeSantis is he's too stodgy all of a sudden. He didn't used to be this way. He had the charisma. But I was watching it and I'm like, dude, show some emotion or something. I mean, it was like almost like watching Biden. I hate to say it, as far as just sitting there. And he got his shots in, don't get me wrong, but this was his chance to come out and just put himself out there like he did as governor during COVID. And I was kind of like a little disappointed with that. What do you think?
I think I agree with you as far as the winners in both cases. I think even though Newsom is obviously a liar, he came across well. He presented himself well. Mm-hmm. Again, we've talked about this going back to 1960 with, if you listen to the debate between Nixon and Kennedy, substance was on the hands of Nixon, but when you looked at Kennedy and how well he looked compared to Nixon, people went with Kennedy. And I'm afraid that's what you saw again yesterday. I mean, Newsom came across sharp, and forward and, like he was in charge. And I'm afraid the DeSantis didn't.
That's exactly my thought, too. That was exactly how it felt like Newsom was being presidential, if I may use that term, whereas DeSantis was being governor, and I would like to have seen him step forward. He had an opportunity there to really show some fire, and he didn't do it. And I think it's going to end up biting him in the ass. I don't think he's going to be the candidate for the Republican Party anyway, unless something happens to Trump. But I think he had a unique opportunity here, and I got to believe that's what their reasoning was for him to do this, was so he could set himself apart from, say, the Nikki Haley's and all them. Nobody's beating Trump. We all know that. They're all lining up in case Trump gets outed somehow.
Or for number 2 slot.
But I think he dropped the ball. I came away from that going, all right. And I'm a big fan of DeSantis.
I think I agree with what you said earlier. Basically, Newsom came across presidential, and especially the one we have currently, who lies through his teeth anyway, so he's a perfect copy of it. But DeSantis came across as a governor who may be out of his own league.
As far as going national with it?
Yeah, I mean, there are people, Greta and I will talk military at certain times. There were people we worked with who were great captains, even, but when they became majors and lieutenant colonels, they were out of their league. It just did. The level wasn't there.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like energizing their base, I think the Democratic base is going to be energized by that yesterday. I don't think the Republican Party is going to look at DeSantis and go, okay, well, that was
I
nice.
don't think anybody from the Democratic base watches Hannity.
Oh, I think they watched yesterday. I haven't seen the ratings. Have you? I have no idea what the ratings are. I got to believe they watched that. Some of them, not all of them, obviously, but I think they're starting to coalesce behind Newsom. They really are.
Energized, Democratic base energized. I think I
For
agree with
Newsom.
Dan.
For Newsom.
Because of Newsom. Yeah, I got you. I think I agree with Dan because right now they're like adrift at sea without hope. And I think maybe this guy is like, oh, here I am. I'm your one hope to keep the White House. So, yeah, I agree.
His critical line last night was also, I'd rather have Joe Biden at 100 rather than Trump currently.
Yeah, that was not his best best line. I heard that one and went, "Oh, dude, you stepped on that one. That was not good." Because I don't know if you saw Biden's ratings again this week. As low as they were, he went lower. I mean, it is. Harris and Biden have all-time lows. They already had them. They took it even a notch lower. I think I believe that Biden will be out as president sometime in the spring.
Yeah, but I think what you're looking at is a case where
Or as candidate, I meant.
They've actually caught up with their IQs.
Well, I mean, as far as energizing the base and reaching out to them, like we've all said, I think Newsom made his points. I mean, clearly this, from their perspective, they're doing this to set him up as the candidate. Like I just said, Biden's out within 4 to 6 months as candidate. I meant said president, I meant candidate. And Newsom's going to slot in. Then it's going to be interesting because you got, for all his, I think he's an evil man. I mean, evil man. I truly believe that. I think, though, he's got that charisma. And if he goes up against Trump, I think he's got a shot. What do you think?
I'm going to give you something you haven't thought about if he goes up against Trump.
What's that?
Who's his ex-wife going out with?
You better tell the audience, Bill, so they know.
His ex-wife is currently dating the Donald Trump Jr.
Yes, she is.
Yes, and I would dare say after being married to him for a while, she probably has a few things she could share. I have not yet met a married person that doesn't have some secrets about their partner that they're willing to share, and especially if they get upset if things go sour.
Yeah, but do you think any of that sticks? I don't know.
It doesn't have to stick. It just has to get out there. Remember, you're aiming at the 40% that doesn't really pay attention to what's going on. They pay attention to the best slander.
Yeah. Well, there's word out there Melania might be leaving Trump too. I don't know if you saw that.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah, it's pure speculation, but it is out on social media, and I just kind of laughed at it. But who knows? You never know.
I saw her the other day. She was at the funeral for Mrs. Carter.
Oh, I didn't see that she was there.
Yeah, they had all the first ladies were there, right down to Hillary.
Good. I'm glad. Well,
they were all there for the ceremony, which was nice.
Just not to sidetrack too much on that, but rest in peace to Ms. Carter. She did a lot of really good work through her life, and I admire her for it.
Carter was a good person.
She was, and Jimmy Carter was a horrendous president. I'll never say anything about that, good about that. But as a person, I think he was one of the.
He was not an evil person.
Not at all. I think he genuinely wanted to help people. Even as president, he was just out of his league. Unfortunately, he's in hospice care too. So,
yeah,
I have a feeling they were so close. They were married for what, 70 whatever years.
She was 96 and he's like 99.
Yeah, so as we all know, when those long-term marriages happen, when one goes, the other tends to go right behind it, the broken heart thing. But I wish them both well. So, getting back to the debate, do you think, I'm curious. Do you think there'll be more along these lines, or is this a one-off?
I'm not sure about that because actually they're giving a chance for people to square off each other and not have a dozen people on the stage. You actually get to hear things about people, good, better, and different.
What do you think, Greta?
I should care, but I don't.
You stole my answer.
No, I'm being very serious.
Yeah.
I'm not funning you. I just don't.
I
I was underwhelmed, unimpressed. There's so many bigger problems these two parties have to solve.
I,
Okay,
I
coming
could.
up
Yeah.
really quick. Look, we work in the same world, right? We volunteer in the same world. And, you know, one day, you're herding cattle and the next day you're fighting angry children who are 70 years old or whatever. But we live in this world and they're living, it's politics and they're living the exact same world. And they've got a guy like Donald Trump who's way ahead of everybody else, but a time bomb coming at him from the courts, right? And then you got this guy Newsome, who's a legend in his own mind, who's now been exposed on national television. But I just don't, I don't see Kamala getting out of his way.
You
I
don't
don't.
really.
No, I don't.
Can you expound on that? Because that's a fascinating point that you just made. You
Well, the Newsome argument presupposes that Kamala has, is just going to stay out of it and what have you. I don't know that.
you
And I know that Joe has the same type of age-related dementia that I've seen many, many times, and it doesn't occur like slow. It doesn't go like that. Age-related dementia goes in waterfalls, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Biden's taken several since he's been in office. Clearly, he has deteriorated in office. So, yes, I think this is a valid discussion, but we cannot forget Kamala.
You really think she's got enough power to put up the fight to become
No,
president?
but you would be interesting. Greta brings up a great point because
Hell,
you
Bill.
got to remember she's going to mobilize two boxes,
Yep.
black and female. And
I get your point. I don't know that I agree with you, though, my friend, and I'll tell you why. She polled at less than 1% within her own party and still is.
but that's
But I
different when
get
you
your
pick.
point.
Now you're going to step over her and embarrass her. That opens up a whole brand new can of worms.
And potentially put in a old white guy.
Right.
you know,
Replacing an older white guy.
yeah. I mean, they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. I just wonder if because the part for all their bad, that you got to give the Democrats one thing: they coalesce around each other. They speak with one voice. Whatever the party heads decide is what it's going to
One
be.
voice and forked tongue.
Agreed. But we have to give credit where credit's due. Is they stick to one message, and I believe that Newsom is the candidate, and they're going to tell Harris go F off. Because who's going to support her within their party? I get what you're saying about checking the boxes, but they could put somebody that checks the same boxes as VP under Newsom. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
but that doesn't change the fact that you had a black female sitting in the number 2 slot, in theory, ready to take over number 1. And all of a sudden you're saying now she needs to step back. We'll bring up another number 2 to somebody else. And this older white guy has to come in and take over. That's not going to sell well to the ladies, the feminists, and or the black parties. And I admit the blacks are leaving the party. African Americans are pulling out of the party. But this is a whole different scenario.
Mm-hmm.
This is, in their mind, discrimination.
What do you think, Greta?
I agree. I think that we underestimate certain groups sometimes and certain actions like the abortion change in the abortion bill at the Supreme Court. And I think we just really overlooked that. And Kamala doesn't strike me as someone who goes out quietly like a mouse. Okay. I've never gathered that impression of her.
See, I have the exact opposite view, and that's okay, right? So, on that note, guess what? It's time for another break.
And while we break, I'm going to point out, Dan, you have the right to be wrong, and we will support.
Oh, you say that every week, Bill. every week. All right, on that note, let's take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with winners and losers for the week. And Bill's the loser every week, but we'll leave it at that. See you in a couple.
Welcome back to Reclaiming America. I'm Greta, and I'm here with the stars of the show, Dan and Bill. And this segment, specifically, we're going to talk about our winners and losers of the week. So, Bill, you start and tell us who you think the winners and losers are.
I think right now the losers of the week is the Israeli government with what the United States is doing to them. I think that it's unconscionable what's happening over there, and I really think they're going to pay for it long term. And I really feel bad for them.
Interesting. And that kind of mirrors my loser. My loser of the week is Ukraine. They've disappeared off the map. Nobody's talking about them. Nobody cares about them anymore.
Oh, did you hear what they said today?
Today? No, I didn't.
The president got on and he said, everybody's paying attention to the Middle East. No one's paying attention to us. And he actually said that.
It's been interesting over, because the ceasefire is going on in Israel, and I was expecting, all right, we'll get some more talk about Ukraine. I didn't hear a thing.
Nothing.
It's like that whole conflict has disappeared. And support from the U.S. as far as the populace, the Congress is still sending billions over because they're getting their cut of it, but I was like shocked that we didn't see like a little bubble up on Ukraine this past week, but there was nothing.
Nope.
Well, the president has a budget, right? He submits a budget, but this Congress isn't going to take it up because they're living on continuing resolutions. And that's absolutely no different than what happened in the Obama administration or in the Trump administration. It's been happening for years and years and years. And without it, he can only do so much, right? He's down to, essential government functions and what have you. And of course, defense is an essential government function. But again, it's our budget system that we, the representatives, the people, put into place. It's miserable. I used to work on it. It's really miserable. And you can spend whatever you're apportioned just to get through that part of the CR. There's no 2024 budget. So the money's not there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few weeks. I mean, they're in recess till the end of the year, but they'll be back in early January to work. First thing they're working on is the budget. Because I think the CR is through the end of January, if I remember right.
They're talking Jan, Feb. I'm not sure.
So it'd be somewhere in there. But Johnson needs to put his foot down. I hope he does. I gave him the pass to get through the next couple of months because he had just taken over. But this is the chance to put a stop to a lot of this crap. Time will tell on that. Greta, do you have a loser? Because Bill and I have given ours. Do you have a loser? And you can't.
Yeah, big one.
What's that?
A big one.
Go ahead.
Okay. So my losers collectively of the week are the American people. God bless them. So while they are starting to wake up, what they have awoken to is the fact that they are no longer living in a representative democracy or a republic, right? What they're living in is under judicial and presidential rule. So they're starting to look around and say, oh, how did all this happen? How did things get this bad? Every time I look up, somebody's court somewhere is stopping our legislatures at the federal level and every other level from doing what they voted for while representing their constituents. So, American people, I'm one of you, and I feel your pain.
Well said.
I agree completely.
Now we know why she makes the big bucks.
We don't need to be on the show anymore, Bill. We'll just let her run.
We're done. We can come and hold the microphone for her.
Just listen to Greta. Whatever she says is true. So,
there you go.
Let's switch to losers. Or winners.
No,
Sorry, winners.
Losers.
Go, Bill.
Interestingly enough, you mentioned, I think, my winner for the week. I think Johnson is becoming my winner for the week because everything he's got going on right now has got the Democrats running in circles. I mean, he's pushing the bill. He's not going to let them uh, get any money to do the Ukraine unless they get money for the border walls. And he's put that in a number of bills. It will have to include money for the border walls. I think he's actually doing what he needs to do. And I think because of that, we might eventually all become winners because I think we finally found someone who's willing to stand up and do what he needs to do.
Along those lines, I don't know if you heard this, but there was, I forget where I saw it, but they had done an accounting of how much was spent on the migrants coming in. We've spent over $450 million to support them.
Ouch.
But we couldn't, or billion, sorry, $450 billion to support them. But yet we can't afford 3 to 5 billion for a wall. Somebody,
You know, I
somebody explain that one to me.
I'll give you one step further. Did you hear what's going on in Staten Island? Because of their shortage of buildings and whatever else, they're now offering people building new homes or additions to their houses another, I think it's $350,000 if you'll add a room on that you can rent out to people.
And Chicago is building a camp, a special camp to house the migrants. And they're going to
but
build churches too.
at the same time, New York is evicting people out of homes, subsidized homes for the elderly and veterans. And there was a big story in the New York Post about it this week.
Right.
They get out. I get guys 96. Get out. Everybody out. We're gonna house the migrants now.
But you know something that no one's also talking about? There was a report this week that about 20,000 of them have said, we need to go back where we came from. This is not what we expected.
I heard that. Yes, I heard the same thing. Yeah.
But
I think, and we've talked about this before, I think long term, this is going to come back to bite the Democratic Party in the ass so bad because, the migrants that are coming in, they're primarily coming from South America. The Latin culture is very family oriented.
oh, I agree.
Very religious, all of that. And the Democrats think they're just going to come in and vote for them. And they may initially, but I think they're going to be in for a real shock long term because they're more conservative than many Americans are as far as like family and all that. So
But keep in fact, there's still that one wild card out there, the Republicans' ability to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
Oh,
here we go again. Who are you? I've converted him, ladies and gentlemen. Let me go to my winner, if I may. And this is a negative winner. The winners of those who got their student loans forgiven at your expense.
Yeah, I saw that.
Billions upon billions of dollars wiped off of their credit at your and my expense because it wasn't for free like they're trying to portray. I have to give them winners, right? If some of them got tens of thousands of dollars wiped out, I guess that's a win for them. What do you think?
Greta, you're first.
yeah, of course. I mean, what I don't know is it going to get shot down ultimately by courts, like Biden's first two attempts to do this. I mean, sure, the Department of Education has a lot of authority to do certain things, but again, we're being run by the judicial branch now, gentlemen. So I'm not so sure.
I actually think that the courts can't do anything about this one, Greta. I saw something on that, yeah, because the loans have now been forgiven. Like I saw an email that was sent out by Biden's admin going, your loan is now forgiven. So for any court to reverse that at this point and put that debt back on, can it be done? Absolutely, it could be. I would not want to be that judge or the Supreme Court. I don't think the Supreme Court would do it. They'll kick it back down to the courts if they do. I hope they do, by the way, take it on. When you look at who makes the most money, college graduates. Well, now we've taken their debt and passed it on to those that don't make that money.
Or that are not college graduates.
Exactly my point, right? So, the average everyday person is going to have to cover this debt. And I don't know about you, but I paid my own student loans back. I want my cut. Where's mine? And interest, by the way. So, I paid mine off about 30 years ago. All right. I mean, I only had about 10 grand in loans at, 5% interest or whatever it is. I'll take a check for 50 to 60,000. How about you?
Ideas.
No problem. Just make it out to cash.
Pay us in $100 bills so it can't be tracked.
There you go.
So, all right, that was my winner. What's that?
We have all our winners. Greta, did you do winners?
Greta's got to do her winner next. That's where I was just about to throw it. So, Greta, who's your winners?
So I'm gonna lean on the new week, what I call the 8-day week. Okay. And my winner of the week is the state of Louisiana, who has not only taken over all executive branch offices in Louisiana with Republicans, they now hold a supermajority in both houses of their legislature, just like we do in the great state of North Carolina. And I am very hopeful and very optimistic that we are not the only two heading down this road right now. And I think Alabama, Mississippi, possibly even Texas are ripe for this kind of action.
I think, is Texas two-state or two-party? I thought they had a majority now.
They're a majority, but I don't think they have a
It's
super.
not a super? I thought it was in Texas.
No, you got Austin and some of those places.
Yeah,
that
I wasn't sure. So, I think actually that's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out next year. I think we're going
The other thing that was interesting this week, and I almost used it, was the Department of Education speaker who got up there and decided he would be smart when he talked to this group of people and quote Ronald Reagan.
I saw that.
Yeah. If you haven't seen it, he gets up there and says, and we're here to, just like Ronald Reagan said, government's here to support you and help you. You want to talk about bending what Reagan said, and he was called on it immediately in 100 different places. He could actually be the loser of the month on that line.
Loser of the decade at this point, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah.
All right.
Reagan did say that he was not implying out there that the government's there to help you. He said that's what the biggest lie in the world is. The government's there to help you.
Yeah, it never works out when they come to help us, does it?
They don't come to help us one way or the other. They only come to deliver us great information like you owe more money.
They'll come and help us whether we want it or not. I guess that's the way we'll wrap things up, because guess what, ladies and gent? It's time to wrap things up.
Jot that one very quickly.
It went by very quickly. So I'm going to have some fun here. Bill, tell people how they can watch us.
Tune us in.
Oh, come on.
TikTok.
Yep.
YouTube.
Yep.
And other places.
Twitter,
yes. I was X, not Twitter.
Rumble.
X.
You did good. I threw him under the bus there deliberately just to see what he would do. And you did very good, my friend. You're learning. So, yes, if you don't follow us on TikTok or Twitter, Bill, not every day, but most days, has a daily commentary on a news item, which there are loads of fun. So you should be checking them out. And sometimes on Twitter, somebody tends to reply to people who take shots at Bill. I don't know who that might be. I think it's Greta.
My alter ego.
But yeah, we have a lot of fun on there. If you really want to see the good stuff, head over to Twitter or X, because we can say things there we can't say here.
Let me give you an example of things we can't say here.
No, we're not going to do that. Don't make me mute you.
Okay.
All right, close it down, Bill.
Everybody, stay tuned. We'll be back in a week with more Reclaiming America.
Bye, y'all.
Have a good one.